सर्वशास्त्राधिकीर्षा सर्ववेदैकसत्फला सर्वसिद्धान्तरत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैकतत्पद सर्वभागवतप्राण श्रीमद्भागवतपुट्टोकलिध्वान्तोदितादित्य श्रीकृष्णपरिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवशराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्या श्रीकृष्ण नमस्ते मदेक बंधो मत्संति मद्गुरो मन्महाधना मनिष्कार मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमस्ते असाधु साधुतादाय नदिनीक्षताकर आनमुंच कदाचिन मां प्रेमनाथस्तुरा ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय text 22 वाम वर्तमानं नरदेह नरदेव देहेष्वनुप्रवृत्तो यम अधर्मपूगः लोभोनृतं चौर्यम् अनार्यमंहो ज्येष्ठा च माया कलहश्च दम्भः. If the personality of Kali religion is allowed to act as a man god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Tadeva. He had stated that you should not stay in my kingdom. No part of your influence should be found in my kingdom. And that is stated in a different manner here. Pravrittau doshan shrinu ityaha. If you are allowed to function, there will be various problems. Listen to them. Naranam devanam cha deheshu iti. Deva api tvat akranta deha lobhat yatharmishtha bhavanti kim punar nara iti bhava. If you are if you enter into the bodies of human beings and the devas, celestial beings, even when the bodies of the celestial beings are overcome by you, they become fixed in various forms of adharma, such as greed. So what to speak of human beings? This is the implication. Amha, treachery, refers to swadharma tyaga, abandoning one's swadharma. The principles of religion, namely emphasis, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. End of emphasis. As we have already discussed, may be followed by the follower of any faith. There is no need to turn from Hindu to Mohammedan or from Mohammedan to Christian or to some other faith and thus become a renegade and not follow the principles of religion. Emphasis. The Bhagavatam religion urges following the principles of religion. End of emphasis. The principles of religion are not the dogmas or regulative principles of a certain faith. Such regulative principles may be different in terms of the time and place concerned. That is, Prabhupada distinguishes between a principle of him and regulative principles of a certain faith. It's a common principles of religion. Such regulative principles may be different in terms of the time and place concerned. One has to see whether the aims of religion have been achieved Sticking to the dogmas and formulas without attaining the real principles is not good. A secular state may be impartial to any particular type of faith, but the state cannot be indifferent to the principles of religion as above mentioned. But in the age of Kali, the executive heads of state will be indifferent to such religious principles, and therefore, under their patronage, the opponents of religious principles such as greed, falsehood, cheating, and pilfering will naturally follow. And so there will be no meaning to propaganda trying to stop corruption in the state. न वर्तितव्यं तत् अधर्म बंधो धर्मेण सत्येन च वर्तितव्ये ब्रह्मावर्ते यत्र यजन्ति यज्ञे यज्ञेश्वरं यज्ञ वितान विज्ञा. Therefore, O friend of the religion, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to truth and religious principles for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahmavarte, a place where sacrifices performed. Yajna vitana vidya. Brahma yajna vitana vidyascha. So persons who know about sacrificial performances and those who know how to conduct Brahma yajna, scriptural studies, they engage in sacrifices in that place where Kali should not be allowed to enter. तस्मात् धर्मेण सत्येन च वर्तितव्ये वर्तितुम् अर्हे ब्रह्मावर्ते देशे. So you should not stay in this land named Brahmavarta, which is fit to be resided by those who practice dharma and satya, who are obedient to Vedic dharma and who are honest. This is the place where there are experts in performing elaborate sacrifices to please the Supreme Lord. The Jiva Goswami notes Brahmavarta Ityupalakshanam, Yagya Deshana. Brahmavarta is an indication that Kali does not deserve to remain in any place where experts perform sacrifices. इति नैव सिद्धे सत्येन च इति पृथगुक्तिः सत्यस्य धर्म मूलत्व व्यंजिका. शाकादीनां विना केवलेन मूलेनापि न प्राय प्रयोजन सिद्धिरित्यतो धर्मेण इति च उक्तम्. Very, very interesting remarks. He says that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that he could have said, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to religious principles. Why did he mention this? According to truth and religious principles. Dharmena satyena cha. Dharmena alone would be enough. Why did he have to say this additionally? That is because satyasya dharma mulatva vyanjika. Because this separate statement, satyena cha, according to religious principles and according to truth, indicates that honesty or truthfulness is the foundation of Vedic dharma. In other words, if I have to attain the results of following dharma, first of all, I need to be honest. That is why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very, very annoyed and irritated with those who are duplicitous, who are diplomatic, who are dishonest. And he said that those who engaged in sinful activities, who are not, uh, you know, who are weak in different, they don't follow the four regulative principles and so on. These people, they will take a few lifetimes to do their service. But he said those who are duplicitous, diplomatic, I've actually seen this statement. It says that those who are duplicitous, diplomatic, even in millions of lifetimes, they can never attain the perfection of pure devotion service to Krishna. Cannot attain that. No way they can attain. So honesty or truthfulness, that is the foundation of dharma. This point is also separately made in Valmiki Ramayana by Lord Rama in the second canto. Skanda Shakadinam Vina Kevalena Mulena Apina Praya Prayojana Siddhi. Without the trunk of a tree, without its branches and so on, simply the root does not produce the result. Mostly. It does not fulfill our needs. Therefore, he did not say you should not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to truth. He could have said either one of this. He could have said in a place where there is dharma or in a place where there is satya. So the reason why he said satya and acha is because satya is the foundation of dharma. But then he could have said only satyena. Why did he say dharmena? That is because, practically speaking, just the root itself is not enough. You require different parts of the tree. So like that, you do require dharma also. Yajneshwaram Krishna. For the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is another way of saying for the satisfaction of Lord Sri Krishna. Yajneshwara, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the beneficiary of all kinds of sacrificial ceremonies. Such sacrificial ceremonies are prescribed differently in the scriptures for different ages. In other words, sacrifice means to accept the supremacy of the Lord and thereby perform acts by which the Lord may be satisfied in all respects. The atheists do not believe in the existence of God, and so they do not perform any sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord. Any place or country where the supremacy of the Lord is accepted and thus sacrifice is performed is called Brahmavarta. Brahmavarta, geographical name, refers to a certain portion of North India, Central India. But Prabhupada, following Jiva Goswami, points out that this is a reference to any place where they perform authentic sacrifices to satisfy the Lord. There are different countries in different parts of the world, and each and every country may have different types of sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord. Emphasis, but the central point in pleasing him is ascertained in the Bhagavatam, and it is truthfulness. The basic principle of religion is truthfulness, and the ultimate goal of all religions is to satisfy the Lord. In this age of Kali, the greatest common formula of sacrifice is the Sankirtana Yajna. That is the opinion of the experts who know how to propagate the process of Yajna. Lord Chaitanya preached this method of Yajna, and it is understood from this verse that the sacrificial method of Sankirtana Yajna may be performed anywhere and everywhere in order to drive away the personality of Kali and save human society from falling prey to the influence of the age. So the idea is that if we follow the principles of Sankirtana Yajna along with the four regulative principles, specifically maintaining truthfulness, then we can save ourselves from falling prey to the influence of Kali Yuga. 34. Yasmin harir bhagavan idyamana idyatmamurtir yajatam sham tanoti kaman amoghan sthirajangamanam antar bahirvayur vivaisha atma. In all sacrificial ceremonies, although sometimes a demigod is worshipped, the Supreme Lord, personality of God, is worshipped because he is the super soul of everyone and exists both inside and outside like the air. And thus it is he only who awards all welfare to the worshipper. Ijyatma Murti. Madhvacharya reads Ishtatma Murti. In which case, it is understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a body or manifests a body according to his own desires. Nano Indradeha Devaha Yujyante Natu Harihi Tatraha Sthireti. Objection. Devas such as Indra are the objects of Vedic sacrifices, not Lord Hari. Response. Stirajangamanam Antarbahi Vayu Riva Esha Atma. He is the super soul of all moving and non-moving creatures. He is present inside and outside. So, in other words, he is the one who is the Sarvantaryami, who is the inner controller of everyone, including the demigods. So, in the form of that inner controller of the Devas, he accepts all the sacrificial offerings. Rajangamanam asmat prajanam kaman ahikan sham paratrikam sukham cha tanoti. And it is this Antaryami, the inner controller, the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, who provides for all of our citizens, both the moving and the non-moving, everything that is desirable for this life and everything that is auspicious for the next life. He provides both types of happiness. The implication is, if you enter into the kingdom, then the sacrificial ceremonies will not be conducted, and therefore none of this will be achieved, will be experienced. Not Kevalam Hari. It is not only Lord Hari who is being worshipped, but Indra and others are also worshipped. And the explanation for that is because the Supreme Lord himself is the one who impels these demigods to provide everything that is required. Even though it is sometimes seen that demigods like Indra and Chandra are worshipped and offered sacrificial awards, the rewards of all such sacrifices are awarded to the worshipper by the Supreme Lord. And it is the Lord only who can offer all welfare to the worshipper. The demigods, although worshipped, cannot do anything without the sanction of the Lord, because the Lord is the super soul of everyone, both moving and non-moving. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord himself confirms this in the following shloka. Yepi Anya Devata 9.23. ये अन्य देवता भक्ता यजन्ते श्रद्धयान्विता तेपि मामेव कौन्तेय यजन्ति अविधि पूर्वकम्. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, or son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. I thought there's a question. Nowadays, the situation makes people such that they forcefully sometimes need to speak untruth. Therefore, these people should avoid these situations where they are forced to speak untruth. Otherwise, there's no end to it. Why is Dharmatma Nima Prabhu like this?
What?
The fact is that the
Your
fact is that
video was in
the fact is that the Supreme Lord is one without a second. There is no God other than the Lord Himself. So let us make it very clear to all the Hindutvawadis. There is one God, Krishna, and there are innumerable demigods, Demigods, demigods. They hate it to hear it, but that is the reality. There's only one Supreme Being, and there are innumerable assistants to Him. This is not some invention by ISKCON and so on. This is actually found in the teachings of all the four Vaishnava lines. It is a common matter. It is just an ordinary principle. It should be clearly understood. Okay. Thus, the Supreme Lord is eternally transcendental to the material creation. But there are many who worship the demigods like the sun, the moon, and Indra, who are only material representatives of the Supreme Lord. These demigods are indirect, qualitative representations of the Supreme Lord. A learned scholar or devotee, however, knows who's who. Therefore, he directly worships the Supreme Lord and is not diverted by the material qualitative representations. Those who are not so learned worship such qualitative material representations, but their worship is unceremonious because it is irregular. "55. Sutovacha. Parikshitaivam adishta स कलिर्जातवे पतुः तम उद्यतासिमाहेदम दंडपाणि विबोध्यतम." Sri Sutta Goswami said, the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Maharaj Parikshit, began to tremble in fear, seeing the king before him like Yamaraj, ready to kill him. Kali spoke to the king as follows. So, Dandapani is a name of Yamaraj. Good to know. So, he lifted his sword up. Jata Vepathuriti Swarakshanaartham Bahutaram Buddhi Balam Prakashitam. He was trembling. The personality of Kali began to tremble in fear. To protect himself, he had several times exhibited his intelligence and strength. Tadapi mama vadha eva upasthita iti bhava. But despite all that, now I'm going to be killed. This is the situation I have to face now. Ragehi ayam abhiprayaka. And the king thought as follows. Yadi imam vadagyam na palayati tada vadavishtam asya vadham athaneva karishyami. If this person does not carry out my order, this order, then I will simply do what I want to do. Kill him. Yadicha palayati tada asya avadhepi mama kapi kshatir nasti. And if he does carry out my instruction, then I don't have anything to lose by not killing him. The king was ready to kill the personality of Kali at once as soon as he disobeyed his order. Otherwise, the king had no objection to allowing him to prolong his life. The personality of Kali also, after attempting to get rid of the punishment in various ways, decided that he must surrender unto him, and thus he began to tremble in fear of his life. The king or the executive head must be so strong as to stand before the personality of Kali like the personality of death, Yamaraj. The king's order must be obeyed, otherwise the culprit's life is at risk. That is the way to rule the personalities of Kali, to create disturbance in the normal life of the state's citizens. So the point, one point that Prabhupada keeps bringing out is that Kshatriyas are meant to be very forceful, meant to be very forceful. They're not meant to be simply trying to forgive as much as possible and all. They're going to be very, very forceful. I'll forgive you, otherwise I'll kill you. Like that. Aliruvacha. Yatra kuvatavatsyaami sarvabhauma tavagyaya. This is like this. Sarvabhauma tavagyaya lakshaye tatra tatrapi tvama teshu sharasanam. O your majesty, though I may live anywhere and everywhere under your order, I shall but see you with bow and arrows wherever I look. You told me that I should not stay here. That's your order. Now, by that order, if I have to stay anywhere else, wherever I stay, I'll see you with the bow and arrows, ready to attack me. Sarvabhauma, O Lord or Emperor of the earth. Sarvasyapi bhumehe rajan. You are the king of the entire earth. Lakshe sakshadevam eva tvam pashyami. So I see only you directly everywhere. Tena sarvesham sthavara jangamanam ishmat prajatvat sarvasyapi bhumestava adhikarat mama vastam sthana bhavat samprati tvadagre vartamanam tvatpadayoh paditam mam swahasteneva jahiti bhava. This entire land is under your control. All of the moving and non-moving creatures of this land, of earth, is under you. They are your prajas. So whichever place I choose to stay will be your place. I have no other place. So therefore, now that I have fallen at your feet and I'm right in front of you, with your own hands, simply just kill me now. The personality of Kali could see that Maharaj Parikshit was the emperor of all lands all over the world. And thus, anywhere he might live, he would have to meet with the same mood of the king. The personality of Kali was meant for mischief, and Maharaj Parikshit was meant for subduing all kinds of mischief mongers, especially the personality of Kali. It was better, therefore, for the personality of Kali to have been killed by the king then and there instead of being killed elsewhere. He was, after all, a surrendered soul before the king, and it was for the king to do what was required. Actually, this principle of protecting one who has surrendered, it was followed by Prabhupada also. In Mayapur, there was a time, Srila Jayapataka Goswami Maharaj is noted in his upcoming book on Srila Prabhupada. There was a time when there was a fake Achyutananda Swami. Achyutananda Swami was a disciple of Prabhupada. an American disciple of Prabhupada. He was a sannyasi. He was Prabhupada sent him to preach in South India, in different places. He was sent to India even before Jayapataka Maharaj was sent. So he had learned Bengali, he could speak Bengali fluently, quite talented. And there was somebody else, some Indian man, who took on the identity of Achyutananda Swami of ISKCON. And he was making life members or something in Rajasthan. He had proper bill books, everything. So then, when eventually it was all traced out, then the man was caught and he was brought all the way to Mayapur where Prabhupada was there. And then he could say what he wanted to say. So he begged to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, please forgive me. I'll do whatever you say. I will, I'll be a devotee. Devotee means I'll stay in Mayapur. I'll do whatever you want. I'll stay whichever is concentrated you want me to stay. I'll do whatever you want, basically. He said that. So Prabhupada told the police that he has surrendered. Now I have to protect him. He's agreed. Do whatever I say. So I'll give him a chance. Let him do different types of devotion service. So he gave him translation work. So he had to attend morning program. He had to do what the devotees do, and Prabhupada gave him some translation service. After a few days, with this luggage, he was trying to run away at Mangalati time from the main gate, and he was caught. He was again brought before Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no, now I have to hand you over to the police because I gave you a chance. They did not accept it. So this principle of protecting a surrendered soul is important. It cannot be neglected. But it comes with some terms and conditions that one has to be obedient. 37. Tanme dharma bhritam shreshta sthanam nirdeshtam arhasi yatraiva niyato vatsiya atishtam stenu shasanam. Therefore, O chief amongst the protectors of religion, please fix some place for me where I can live permanently under the protection of your government. And if you decide to not kill me, then fix some place for me. And tell me what I'm supposed to do. The personality of Kali anticipated that the king would be thinking like that. What should I do for you? Therefore, Kali Purusha speaks this verse. Give me a place. The personality of Kali addressed Maharaj Parikshita as the chief amongst the protectors of religiosity because the king refrained from killing a person who surrendered unto him. A surrendered soul should be given all protection, even though he may be an enemy. That is the principle of religion. And we can just imagine what sort of protection is given by the personality of God into the person who surrenders unto him, not as an enemy, but as a devoted servitor. The Lord protects the surrendered soul from all sins and all resultant reactions of sinful acts. Bhagavad Gita 18.66. All this surrender, these principles, they are all to be worked out on the basis of to whatever extent the surrendering soul is surrendered, to that extent, the protecting soul should protect. So if the surrendered soul is not 100% surrendered, the protecting soul does not have to provide 100% protection also. 38. Sutavacha. Abhyarthita tasmai sthanani kalayedadau. Dyutampanam striyasona yatra dharmas chatur vidhaha. Suta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, thus being petitioned by the personality of Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter were performed. Panam, drinking, madhyade, refers to drinking, intoxicating wine, and so on. Wine and so on. Suna, animal slaughter. Prani vadhaha, dyute. What is it, dyute? Dyuto. No. Dyute andrutam. Pani madaha. Okay. Through gambling, there is dishonesty. Through drinking, there is pride. Purvam madaha dayanashakattvena ukte atratu garva garva garvadvara tapo nashakattvena. Previously, it was stated that drinking destroys compassion. Now it is stated that it destroys austerity, but that is through pride. Strishu sangraha, association with women. Himsayam, krauryam, dayanashikam iti geya. When one engages in violent activities and develops cruelty, then compassion is destroyed. Yadyapi sarvam sarvatra sambhavati. Even though all the four principles of virtue, all the four principles of virtue are destroyed by all these four activities, tathapi pradhanyena andutadinam dyutadishu yathasancham gyeyam. Still, primarily, dishonesty is destroyed through gambling and so on. Dvadashaskande tu satyam daya tapodanam iti pada vibhod nrupa ityatra dana shabdena shauchamevoktam. In the 12th canto, it is stated that dharma has four legs. Satyam, truthfulness, daya, compassion, tapaha, austerity, dhanam, charity. Now here, charity actually refers to cleanliness. Manashuddhi rupatvad bhuta abhaya danasya. Because the charity of granting security or fearlessness to all creatures is actually purification of the mind. And then 12th canto, there's another statement that 1/4 of the four legs of dharma are destroyed in Treta Yuga. And this happens through andrita, dishonesty, himsa, violence, asantosha, dissatisfaction, vigraha, violence, or cruelty, or quarrel. Here, asantosha or dissatisfaction is a reference to pride, which brings about dissatisfaction. And vigraha or quarrel is a reference to stri sangha, illicit connection with women, which brings about quarrel. Iti avirodha. So in this way, there's no contradiction between these statements of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nahi prani hantrishu tapaha shuchitvam daya va pratyavachanam tu teshu nasti eva iti. For those who kill various living creatures, there is no austerity, there is no cleanliness, there is no compassion also. And certainly, there is no honesty, there is no truthfulness. Basic principles of religiosity, such as pride, prostitution, intoxication, and falsehood, counteract the four principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. The personality of Kali was given permission to live in four places, particularly mentioned by the king, namely the place of gambling, the place of prostitution, the place of drinking, and the place of animal slaughter. Srila Jiva Goswami directs that drinking against such scriptural principles as those which govern the Sautramani Yajna, association with women outside marriage, and killing animals against the injunctions of scriptures are irreligious. In the Vedas, two different types of injunctions are there. One type for the pravrittas, or those who are engaged in material enjoyment, and another type for the nivrittas, or those who are engaged in becoming liberated from material bondage. The Vedic injunction for the pravrittas is to gradually regulate their activities towards the path of liberation. Therefore, for those who are in the lowest stage of ignorance and who indulge in wine, women, and flesh, drinking by performing Sautramani Yajna, association of women by marriage, and flesh eating by sacrifices are sometimes recommended. Such recommendations in the Vedic literature are meant for a particular class of men and not for all. But because they are injunctions of the Vedas for particular types of persons, such activities by the pravrittas are not considered adharma. One man's food may be poison for others. Similarly, what is recommended for those in the mode of ignorance may be poison for those in the mode of goodness. There was one Prabhupada disciple who brought out this point. He said that within ISKCON we have a habit of always checking what Prabhupada has said. But he noted that there are also instances where Prabhupada is speaking to specific audiences. And if the specific audience is tamasic, Prabhupada's instruction is also to gradually help that person move up. And those who are coming from higher background, rajasic or sattvic backgrounds, they should not become disoriented by these injunctions, these instructions, or these recommendations, and so on. Even though they are given by Prabhupada himself. Because Prabhupada is referring to previous acharyas are referring to Shastra. So ultimately, it is all Shastra only. It is all Krishna's injunction. But Krishna's injunction also is based on different levels. Level-specific injunction. Or as I often refer, Adhikara Uchita Shiksha. Instruction appropriate to capacity. It's a question in the chat box. Why should we give protection to enemy if he does any harm again? No, that's always the principle of clemency, forgiveness. If an opponent is willing to surrender, you should give that opportunity. Everybody should be given the opportunity to correct himself or herself, while ensuring that we are not exploited by them. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu therefore affirms that recommendations in the scriptures for a certain class of men are never to be considered adharma or irreligious. But such activities are factually adharma and they are never to be encouraged. Actually, adharma means that it's kamya karma. Kamya karma means allowed activities. There are prescribed activities, vihita karma, kamya karma, allowed activities, nishiddha karma, and prohibited activities. Restrictions, prohibitions, and allowances. And Manu himself states in Manu Samhita that for those who are moving towards liberation, they should not take advantage of kamya karma. It is dangerous for them. So one man's food is another man's poison. And since out of the four purusharthas, the real purushartha is moksha, similarly, in reality, kamya karma should be rejected like prohibited activities. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying, but such activities are factually adharma, and they are never to be encouraged. We allow these activities. We don't encourage these activities. As a general principle, we don't encourage these activities. The recommendations in the scriptures are not meant for the encouragement of such adharma, but for regulating the necessary adharma gradually towards the path of dharma. Ultimately speaking, dharma is what? Dharma is nothing but pure devotion, service unto Krishna's lotus feet. That is the actual dharma. Everything, because everything else, scripture itself says you give up, give up, give up, give up, give up. For instance, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary to Bhagavad Gita, points out that the scriptures teach, in one place he says, the scriptures teach karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti. Okay. But at the same time, the scriptures also present a process of spiritual advancement that initially one engage in karma while being internally detached. But at a certain point, one is supposed to actually give up karma. That's called karma sannyas. Internally give up and externally also give. Similarly, jnana, initially it is accepted. So the idea is this. First one accepts, one rejects adharma, accepts karma. Of course, accepts karma always means accepts karma with the principles of jnana, yoga, bhakti. But since predominantly it's karma, that combination is called karma also. Karma combination. And internally, he should give up the desire for karma phala, which means the benefits that come by following karma, which cannot be attained by following adharma. So you should give up. There are certain things which only Vedic dharma can provide. Varna dharma, ashrama dharma, stri dharma. Over time in this life and in the future. So one may have desires for these things. These desires should be given up. And then afterwards, that these external activities, as one makes spiritual progress and becomes a qualified Brahmani, and attains the qualities of a sannyasi, you should give up those activities, material duties that he had initially started off performing. So that's called karma sannyas. And then when he's engaging in these sattvic activities are known as jnana. And these sattvic activities have liberation as the goal. That's called jnana phala, the result of jnana. So internally one may have a desire for that. But as he makes spiritual progress, it is understood that we should give up that also. Internally give up that. We should decide that no, it's to please the supreme law. And then externally one has to give up the activity of jnana also at a later stage. But you will never find that the scripture says you should give up bhakti. Now when it says jnana, it means jnana mixed with bhakti. So when one finally comes to the point of bhakti, there's no bhakti sannyas. There's karma sannyas, jnana sannyas, even yoga sannyas. You take yoga as an intermediate between jnana and bhakti. But there is no place you will find in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam bhakti sannyas. You don't give up bhakti. So therefore, bhakti is a real dharma because it is always prescribed. It is prescribed for everyone. Following in the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit, all executive heads of state have a duty to see that the principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, are established in the state, and that the principles of irreligion, namely pride, illicit female association or prostitution, intoxication, and falsity, are checked by all means. And to make the best use of a bad bargain, the personality of Kali may be transferred to places of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter, if there are any places like that. Those who are addicted to these irreligious habits may be regulated by the injunctions of the scripture. In no circumstances should such habits be encouraged by any state. In other words, the state should categorically stop all sorts of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and falsity. The state which wants to, state means country. In civics, state refers to country. The state which wants to eradicate corruption by majority may introduce the principles of religion in the following manner. 1, 2 compulsory fasting days in a month, if not more austerity. Even from the economic point of view, such 2 fasting days in a month in the state will save tons of food. and the system will also act very favorably on the general health of the citizens. Two, there must be compulsory marriage of young boys and girls attaining 24 years of age and 16 years of age, respectively. There is no harm in co-education in the schools and colleges, provided the boys and girls are duly married and they maintain their marriage vows. And in case there is any intimate connection between a male and female student, they should be married properly without illicit relation. The Divorce Act is encouraging prostitution and this should be abolished. At least these principles should be applied inside ISKCON. Then we can prove to the world that we have the courage to carry out these instructions. 3. The citizens of the state must give in charity at least 50% of their income for the purpose of creating a spiritual atmosphere in the state or in human society, both individually and collectively. Notice this 50% principle is as important as fasting on Ekadashis and following the 4 regulative principles. This is where the congregation have a major role to play as financial contributors to Lord Chaitanya's mission. Citizens of the society at least 50% of their income for the purpose of creating a spiritual atmosphere in the state or in human society, both individually and collectively. The principles of the Bhagavatam should be preached, namely A. Karma Yoga, doing everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. B. Regular hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam from authorized persons or realized souls. C. Chanting of the glories of the Lord congregationally at home or at places of worship. D. Rendering of all kinds of service to Bhagavatas engaged in preaching Srimad Bhagavatam. And E. Residing in a place where the atmosphere is saturated with God consciousness. Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavata Shravan, Mathura Vas. Where is Mathura Vas? In place of Mathura Vas, Prabhupada is placed, doing everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. No. Mathura Vas is very much there, residing in a place where the atmosphere is saturated with God consciousness. And then, Trimurti Shraddha Seva. That Prabhupada is brought out as Karma Yoga, or doing everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. In Karma Yoga also one has to engage in deity worship. If the state is regulated by the above process, naturally there will be God consciousness everywhere. Gambling of all description, even speculative business enterprise, is considered to be degrading. And when gambling is encouraged in the state, there is complete disappearance of truthfulness. Allowing young boys and girls to remain unmarried past the above mentioned ages and licensing animal slaughterhouses of all description should be at once prohibited. Actually, previously, now of course everything has gone upside down because of internet and so on. But previously, when communication was much more restricted, these restrictions were in place in India, in different places. There was this arrangement of getting the boys and girls who are related as cousins, but who don't belong to the same gotra. This was, they were often married off. These principles were there in place. The flesh eaters may be allowed to take flesh, as mentioned in the scriptures, and not otherwise. Intoxication of all description, even smoking cigarettes, chewing tobacco, and drinking tea must be prohibited. This is for the good of the citizens. And of course, the citizens will not like it. But just like doctors don't reduce their prescriptions, even if the patients don't like it, like that, for their own good, these things have to be provided. 39. Punaschayachamanaya jatarupam adatprapupu tatom nritam madam kamam rajo vairam panchavam. The personality of Kali asked for something more, and because of his begging, the king gave him permission to live where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. चतुर्विधस्य अपि एकत्र एव अवस्थानं देहीति पुनर्याचमानाय जातरूपं सुवर्णं दत्तवान्. The personality of Kali asked for something more, meaning, give me some place where all the four principles of adharma will be found. Therefore, the king said, okay, you can stay in gold. Tataha suvarnadanad anrutam madam kamamiti strishu sangam raja iti rajo moolam himsam etani chatvari panchamam vairam cha adara. So from that, everything is given. Facility to engage in all these sinful activities has been provided now. भो राजन् एतद् वृत्तान्तं श्रुत्वा द्यूतादिकं कोऽपि न अनुशीलयिष्यति. By listening to this news, nobody is going to engage in these practices of gambling and so on. Kimcha pratham manasi mad praveshas tateva lokaha prayah yutadikam bhajante iti. First of all, I need to enter into their minds. And only then the people, mostly, after I enter into their minds, only people engage in gambling and so on. Atra bhavata jiyamanapi sthana chatushtrayam adattamevabhut. So, even though you have given me these places, for all practical purposes, you have not given me any place. Tasmad evam kimapi sthanam aham prapnuyam yal loke dustyajyam sya. So give me something, some place in which I can reside, which people will be unable to give up, from which I can enter into their minds and employ my prowess, my impact. I can show my impact. Iti ashamanaya kalaye. And then when Kali begged like this, Jatarupam swarnopalakshitam rajatadikam dravyamatrameva tad vasasthanatvenada. Then he gave him gold. A gold is actually not just gold alone. It is a reference to all forms of wealth, such as silver and so on. Tataiva heto dhanavatsu anrutam nitya mada panadi janita matata kama stri sangha rajo garva iti chaturvidha adharmaha. Therefore, amongst the rich people, you will find all this. You will find this falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Tatha panchamam vairam chasya. So they will have all these four principles of adharma. By hearing this narration, people would give up gambling. That was the concern of Kali Purusha. He gave him dhana or wealth as the place where he can reside. So he has protected the king has protected his fame. He has been a worthy object of surrender. And he has not killed Kali. He has even provided him a place to stay. Yadi mad agyanusari na tishthet tadaitad vada sushaka eva. Even then, if Kali Purusha does not carry out the injunction of the king, then it is very easy for the king to kill him for a good reason. This is what he was thinking. Tateva hetor dhanishu anrutadeha. Therefore, those who are rich they suffer from these unearthers, these unwanted attitudes and desires, falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, enmity. Although Maharaj Parikshit gave Kali permission to live in 4 places, it was very difficult for him to find the places because during the reign of Maharaj Parikshit, there were no such places. Therefore, Kali asked the king to give him something practical which could be utilized for his nefarious purposes. Maharaj Parikshit thus gave him permission to live in a place where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there are all the above mentioned 4 things, and over and above them, there is enmity also. So the personality of Kali became gold standardized. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, gold encourages falsity, intoxication, prostitution, envy, and enmity. Gold is not just gold, it refers to wealth. Even a gold standard exchange and currency is bad. Gold standard currency is based on falsehood because the currency is not on par with the reserve gold. The basic principle is falsity because currency notes are issued in value beyond that of the actual reserve gold. This artificial inflation of currency by the authorities encourages prostitution of the state economy. The price of commodities becomes artificially inflated because of bad money or artificial currency notes. Bad money drives away good money. Instead of paper currency, actual gold coin should be used for exchange, and this will stop the prostitution of gold. Gold ornaments for women may be allowed by control, not by quality, but by quantity. This will discourage lust, envy, and enmity. When there is actual gold currency in the form of coins, the influence of gold in producing falsity, prostitution, etc. will automatically cease. There will be no need of an anti-corruption ministry for another term of prostitution and falsity of purpose. In other words, gold can be provided in control with some limitation. 40. Amoni panchasthanani hyadharma prabhavah kalihi. Autare yena dattani nyavasat tan nidesha krit. Thus, the personality of Kali, by the directions of Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. That very moment, Kali entered into those places and took charge of them. Thus, the age of Kali began with gold standardization, and therefore, falsity, intoxication, animal slaughter, and prostitution are rampant all over the world, and the saner section is eager to drive out corruption. The counteractive process is suggested above, and everyone can take advantage of this suggestion. Notice that Bhagavatam is very clear that wealth itself is a great risk factor for all those who want to benefit themselves. In today's world, they think that becoming rich is becoming successful. In fact, becoming rich is becoming a failure. It is not success, it is failure. Because all of these problems will come. Satyam, Shaucham, Tapa, Daya. These will be destroyed. So this is not success, this is failure. If one is morally or ethically a failure, no matter how much money you have, it is simply a waste of, it's not more than a waste of, you're destroying others. It's better to be an ethical poor person than to be an unethical rich person, because you're harming yourself, you're harming others. How Kali is acting by sitting in these 4 places. Kali will enter into the minds. He will encourage persons to become more and more degraded. How to encourage leaders to follow this list? They're already polluted people. Example is better than precept. When we follow, then people become inclined. When they actually not just follow, when we follow and they see the unique benefits that are described in the scriptures, when they see these unique benefits in our lives, then they will accept. It's like, why do people accept a certain doctor as being a better doctor than others? because they see the effect based on effect. Gold ornaments for women may be allowed by control, not by quality but by quantity. This will discourage lust, envy, and enmity. What is the meaning of control? There has to be some method by which wealth is appropriately distributed. I have not studied Arthashastra, so I haven't, it is a gigantic world. I'm not gone into it. But basically, if there are principles of justice and people are encouraged to elevate themselves, first of all, they need to understand the big picture and they should be encouraged to elevate themselves. Liberation from material existence should be understood to be the highest possible achievement. Those who are liberated are successful. And in order to attain liberation, you need to develop sattvic qualities. So those who are successful, they have already attained the first stage of, those who have become sattvic, they have already attained the first stage of success. So the entire thing has to be redrawn. In today's world, they think that Artha Kama is success. Artha Kama is not success. It is Dharma Moksha which is success. Anteshure mere. The intelligent people are interested in the two ends of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, in that list, Dharma and Moksha. Whereas the unintelligent are interested in the middle two, Artha and Kama. 41. Athaitanena seveta bhuvushu purushah pachit visheshato dharmashilo rajaloka patir guruhu. Therefore, whoever desires, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the four above mentioned irreligious principles. Notice Guruhu, the brahmanas, and the sannyasis. The brahmanas and sannyasis are meant to be actually spiritual masters. Vihita atirekena na seveta. They should not accept anything material beyond what is prescribed for them. Vushuhu, udbhavitum ichuhu, those who desire their own progressive well-being, they should be careful about this. Three suvarnayor is asevanam nama ayor anasaktihi. To not associate with women or gold means to not be attached to them. Striyam parakiyam eva na seveta. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur says, one should not associate with a woman who belongs to someone else. Suvarnasya asevanam nama tatra anasaktir ityete. And some authorities say that to not take shelter of gold means to not be attached to gold. Suvarnastriya swastriyo asevanam anasakti. One should not be attached to gold and one's own woman. Parastrinam surupadastyaga. And one should actually give up association with other women. Other women is women who belong to others' wives. The Brahmanas are the religious preceptors for all other castes, and the sannyasis are the spiritual masters for all the castes and orders of society. Thus, the Brahmanas and sannyasis have very great responsibilities in society. So also do the king and the public leader, who are responsible for the material welfare of all people. The progressive religionists and those who are responsible human beings, or those who do not want to spoil their valuable human lives, should refrain from all the principles of religiosity, especially illicit connection with women. If a Brahmana is not truthful, all his claims as a Brahmana at once become null and void. If a sannyasi is illicitly connected with women, all his claims as a sannyasi at once become false. So the idea is that a Brahmana should not say that I am not truthful in service to God, just as a sannyasi should not say that I'm having a relationship with a woman in service to God. To that degree. Similarly, if the king and the public leader are unnecessarily proud or habituated to drinking and smoking, certainly they become disqualified to discharge public welfare activities. Truthfulness is the basic principle for all religions. The four leaders of the human society, namely the sannyasi, the brahmana, the king, and the public leader, must be tested crucially by their character and qualification. Before one can be accepted as a spiritual or material master of society, he must be tested by the above-mentioned criteria of character. This is normalcy. This is what I call the normal mode. Then there is something else called emergency mode. During Prabhupada's time, he employed the emergency mode. He would give sannyas to somebody, even though that person was not qualified. But that person was desirous of becoming qualified. So he would first of all make him a sannyasi, and then he would expect that person to come up to the standard. But Prabhupada also said that you cannot do these things after I leave this world. So I take it that this means after 14th of November 1977, don't try to employ the emergency mode. Employ the normalcy mode. Let people be qualified by guna and karma, internally and externally, uninterruptedly letting them be qualified under all circumstances. Then you give them those posts. And ISKCON has been struggling to accept this because this way of thinking is too terrifying for some. It's too terrifying. Oh, what is this? But if we follow the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, we will become qualified. It is not that we will not become qualified. Such public leaders may be less qualified in academic qualifications, but it is necessarily primarily that they be freed from the contamination of the four disqualifications, namely gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter. 42. Vrishasya nashtam strin padan tapashaucham dayamiti pratisandadha ashwasya mahimcha samavardhayat. Thereafter, the king re-established the lost legs of the personality of religion, the bull, and by encouraging activities, he sufficiently improved the condition of earth. By encouraging activities means tapa adini pravartitavan. He encouraged the activities of austerity, tapa, shaucham, cleanliness, satyam, honesty, daya, compassion. By designating particular places for the personality of Kali, Maharaj Parikshit practically cheated Kali. In the presence of Kali, Dharma in the shape of a bull and the earth in the shape of a cow, he could actually estimate the general condition of his kingdom, and therefore he at once took proper steps to re-establish the lost legs of the bull, namely austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. And for the general benefit of the people of the world, he saw that the gold stock might be employed for stabilization. Gold is certainly a generator of falsity, intoxication, prostitution, enmity, and violence. But under the guidance of a proper king or public leader, or a brahmana or sannyasi, the same gold can be properly utilized to re-establish the lost legs of the bull, the personality of religion. Maharaj Parikshit, therefore, like his grandfather Arjuna, collected all illicit gold kept for the propensities of Kali and employed it in the Sankirtan Yagya as per the instruction of the Srimad Bhagavatam. As we have suggested before, one's accumulated wealth may be divided into three parts for distribution, namely 50% for the service of the Lord, 25% for the family members, and 25% for personal necessities. These points we should ingrain in the minds of those who are starting to take up Krishna consciousness. Right from the beginning, we should bring in these points. Spending 50% for the service of the Lord or for propagation of spiritual knowledge in society by way of the Sankirtan Yagya is the maximum display of human mercy. People of the world are generally in darkness regarding spiritual knowledge, especially in regard to the devotional service of the Lord, and therefore to propagate the systematic transcendental knowledge of devotional service is the greatest mercy that one can show in this world. When everyone is taught to sacrifice 50% of his accumulated gold for the Lord's service. Gold means wealth. Certainly, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy automatically ensue, automatically follow. And thus the three lost legs of the personality of religion are automatically established. When there is sufficient austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, naturally Mother Earth is completely satisfied, and there is very little chance for Kali to infiltrate the structure of human society. 43 and 44. Sa esha etarhyadhyasta asanam partivochitam pitamahenopannyastam ragyaranyam vikshata astedhunas rajarshi Kauravendra Shriyollasan Gajahvaye Mahabhagas Chakravarti Bhatshrava. The most fortunate Emperor Parikshit, who was entrusted with the kingdom of Hastinapur by Maharaj Yudhishthir when he decided to retire to the forest, is now ruling the world with great success due to his being glorified by the deeds of the kings of the Kuru dynasty. Vishmadiya Satra Pravrittirapi Tat Prabhavadeva Ityahatrihi. And then in 3 verses, beginning with text 43, Sutta Goswami says that your performance of this Satra, which is one type of sacrificial performance, that is also by the influence of this king. Either he idanim yudhishthirena aranyam praveshtum not ichchata. Upanyasam samarpitam akarmadhyaste adhuna aste palayate iti vartamana samipya vartamana van nirdeshasma ityadhyamaropa. See, this is stated in present tense, is now ruling the world. In Sanskrit grammar, that's a principle that the recent past can be referred to with present tense, or the recent or the immediate future can also be referred to using the present. So if something just took place very recently, you can refer to it in present tense. The prolonged sacrificial ceremonies undertaken by the sages of Naimisharanya were begun shortly after the demise of Maharaj Parikshit. The sacrifice was to continue for 1,000 years, and it is understood that in the beginning, some of the contemporaries of Baladev, the elder brother of Lord Krishna, also visited the sacrificial place. According to some authorities, the present tense is also used to indicate the nearest margin of time from the past. In that sense, the present tense is applied to the reign of Maharaj Parikshit here. For a continuous fact also, present tense can be used if something is continuously going on. Like we say, he goes for jogging at 6 a.m. This is present tense. Right now, it may not be 6 a.m., but we still speak like that because it's a continuous event. Every day at 6 a.m., he does something. So like that, when something is continuously executed, then the present tense can also be used. The principles of Maharaj Parikshit can still be continued, and human society can still be improved if there is determination by the authorities. We can still purge out from the state all the activities of immorality introduced by the personality of Kali if we are determined to take action like Maharaj Parikshit. He allotted some place for Kali, but in fact, Kali could not find such places in the world at all because Maharaj Parikshit was strictly vigilant to see that there were no places for gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter. Modern administrators want to banish corruption from the state, but fools that they are, they do not know how to do it. They want to issue licenses for gambling houses, shops selling wine, and other intoxicants, brothels, prostitution hotels, and cinema houses. Notice cinema house in this list. And they allow falsity in all dealings, even their own, and at the same time, they want to drive out corruption from the state. They want the kingdom of God without God consciousness. How can it be possible to address two contradictory matters? If we want to drive out corruption from the state, we must first of all organize society to accept the principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. To make the condition favorable, we must close all places of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and falsehood. out of mind, sorry, out of sight, out of mind. When one becomes irresistibly and purely attracted to the principles of Krishna consciousness, then you do not require that out of sight, out of mind, because it is always out of mind. But otherwise, this is very important because it makes the condition favorable. These are some of the practical lessons from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so I'll stop with that. Panchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.